So here I'm doing a part 2 of items that you do not need to store in the fridge. So another item that you shouldn't be storing in the fridge is fresh herbs like basil and mint. What you should do instead is to trim those fresh herbs down and put them in a jar of water, just a little bit of water, to give them, and you might even grow roots and you might be able to replant them if you want. Same with cilantro and stuff. They will stay fresh a zillion times longer than throwing them in the fridge. The temperature of the fridge that you have to maximize keeping the vegetables that need to go in there and the meat and the dairy is too cold for the delicate herbs. So keep them out on your counter. Do not put them in the fridge. Oils. Your extra virgin olive oil, your avocado oil, coconut oil, any of the oils, you should keep them in the pantry. The reason oil-based items like salad dressings sometimes need refrigeration after opening is simply because of the other things that are in them that can turn rancid. So keep them in your cupboard. Do not put them in the fridge. They will just take up space. Hot sauce, like sriracha and Tabasco, you do not need to put them in the fridge. I don't know why people do. I know many people who make their own hot sauce. Now, if you want it for long-term storage, you can can it. But once it's open, you could use it and leave it out. It is just hot peppers and oils and salt. And not oils, vinegar and salt. So it's already pickled. It does not need to be refrigerated. There's always exceptions to the rule. If they have dairy in them or other additives, they will possibly need to be refrigerated. But things like literally Tabasco or sriracha do not. Sometimes over time the color of the hot sauce might change due to age, but that is perfectly fine. Same with like jams. When you make your own jam, over time the jams turn darker. It does not mean that's bad. Citrus fruit. I never, ever, 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 ever put oranges and oranges and lemons and limes or grapefruit in the fridge. They do not need to be. They're just taking up space. And they'll keep longer just on your counter. And fruit stored at room temperature will last at least 1 or 2 weeks. Bread. The only time I ever put bread in the fridge is when there's only a few slices of bread and I'm going away and I want it to last till I come back. I always keep it out. I don't put it in the fridge. Bread, especially fresh baked bread, it will just make it go softer and not as tasty. Just keep it out in a paper bag or that to keep the air out, and it'll be perfectly fine. And if you want to extend the life of your breads, for example, if one person in your family is like gluten-free and you want to extend that bread because it's expensive, freeze it. Take out what you need for a couple of days, put that in a bag on your counter, put the rest in the freezer. You don't need to put it in the fridge. Vinegars. No matter what type of vinegars, black vinegars, white vinegars, apple cider vinegars, malt vinegars, any type of vinegar that you have does not need to be in the fridge. It just needs to be in a cool, dark space like a cupboard or a pantry. And it will last for months or years, literally. Sometimes Some vinegars will lose their flavor after a year or so. So just try and buy smaller bottles of things that you don't use that often. Like, for example, we have a small bottle of malt vinegar. We like using it on French fries. I don't know anything else that you use malt vinegar for. So it doesn't get used that often. But even after a year, it's still perfectly fine. I haven't noticed any loss in flavor, but some people might notice it. But it's up to you. Okay, here's a controversial one that some people question. Butter. I never keep butter in my fridge. Well, sorry. I do keep butter in the fridge when I purchase it. But once I've opened it, I just keep it in the butter dish. I keep it on the pantry. I put it in the cupboard. I leave it out. Summer, winter, fall, spring. Okay, 1 pound of butter is not going to go bad. Even if you have more than 1 pound out, it's not going to go bad. You don't need to put it in the fridge. If I want it for longer term storage, I freeze my butter. When it's on sale, I'll buy, as you saw in my grocery haul, on the 18th, no, not the 18th, 19th of September, I bought 5 butters. Right now, they are in the fridge. They will be used in the next few weeks. If they don't come on sale again, I will put those in the freezer and I'll buy the ones whenever they're on sale. But they don't need to be in the fridge. Having butter out, it's softer and it's easier to spread on your toast. Otherwise, you're ripping the bread. At room temperature, butter can last at least 2 or 3 weeks in an airtight container and will not go bad. In the summer months, it will last about that, if and the winter months more, because it's cooler. It won't go rancid for 2 weeks. So if you leave out what you want, the rest you just throw in the freezer. You don't need to keep it in the fridge. Peppers. I rarely, if ever, keep peppers in my fridge. I keep them in the veggie drawers that I have and just keep them in a dark place. They will be perfectly fine for a week in there. Now, if I've cut the peppers, I put those in the fridge. So that's all you do. Like, if they're not cut, I keep them out. Tropical fruit, like pineapples and papayas and dragon fruit and lychees, star fruit, figs, mangoes, all those things. They will last until the ripeness without losing the flavor. Usually when you're purchasing them here in Canada, because they travel from a long distance, they are picked not ripe. They are picked when far from being ripe. You leave them on your counter and they will ripen there. Once they are ripe, you use them within a few days. Once you cut open the fruit, put the cut up pieces in the fridge, because otherwise they'll get like fruit flies or that. As I said before, when I talked about the potatoes, onions, I never ever keep onions in the fridge, even green onions. I take the green onions, I put them in like a mason jar, and I put water in them, and I just have them out, and they keep on regrowing. You can get like 2 to 3 times the amount of green onions from one batch of green onions. If you keep it in water, it just keeps on regrowing. So don't put onions in there. Once they're chopped, though, once they're cut open, then you need to put them in an airtight container and put them in the fridge. If you do not put them in an airtight container, like if you had a sliced onion just cut open and you put it in the fridge, it will stink up your whole fridge and it will smell like onions. Real maple syrup, or even the fake maple syrup, you do not need to put that in the fridge. Maple syrup is liquid sugar. It needs to be in the cupboard. Maple syrup should not be kept in the fridge at all. Actually, if you want to keep maple syrup for a long period of time, put it in the freezer. But you can keep it in the fridge if you want to, but you don't need to. it will stay perfectly fine in your cupboard open. It will be perfectly fine in your freezer if you had a big batch of it. Why use up Prime Realty for maple syrup? You don't need to at all. Mustard. Mustard is another thing that you do not need to put in the fridge and keep in the fridge unless you don't use mustard often. It all comes down to how often you use it and how big the jar is, etc. Mustard, when stored in the fridge after opening, can last for months or even up to a year with optimum flavor. However, you can store it in your pantry and it'll be still good to eat and not lose flavor for a couple months at room temperature. It is perfectly fine. All the vinegar and the mustard seeds, it will be fine. Now, if you don't use it that often, if you have multiple different types of mustard, like a Dijon and a green one and a yellow mustard, use smaller containers of it, and you can keep them out or keep them in the fridge, but you don't have to. So if you're running out of space in your fridge, those are the things that you can kind of leave on the shelf. They won't go bad. And there you have it. That's another 10 or 12 items that you do not need to keep in your fridge. If you like this video, please comment below. Also, is there anything else I missed? I possibly have missed some, because I'm sure there are stuff that is unique to other people's cultures that they don't put in the fridge. What don't you put in the fridge that other people do? Comment below. Have a great day. Bye, friends.